go and ask the questions, go and talk to the experts. And I think that, you give people growth in whatever area, whether it be personal development. They get an achievement by getting promoted at work. They get when they get that achievement, fulfilment, or that growth, like I talked about before, losing weight. They get achievement. They get fulfilment.
Welcome to the Get Invested podcast, where we share conversations I've enjoyed with experts from all walks of life to uncover their secret know-how on where they invest their time, their skills, and their money, and the benefits this has created. Get Invested helps you to live more, work less, and leave a legacy by investing now. Listen to the show to discover top tips on how to get started, to make the most of your investment journey, and ultimately to be living the dream. More episodes can be found on iTunes or at khgroup.com.au/Get Invested. Thanks for listening, and let's get invested. Welcome back to this week's episode of Get Invested, Freedom Fighters. Are you living the dream? Have you got everything, but you just still feel unfulfilled? You've got a great partner, a good income, a nice home, but you still feel empty on the inside, as if something's missing, but you're just not sure what it is. You just can't put your finger on it. Your life looks perfect from the outside looking in, but secretly you feel trapped on the treadmill with no light at the end of the tunnel. You put on a brave face, but at night you're left staring at the ceiling wondering, what am I going to do? If this is you, then today's episode will be music to your ears. Our guest Peter Finn has been there, and he has some great advice and learnings on how to break through. Pete's a very down-to-earth country boy who has grown up in the mining industry, and he now owns and runs his own business, Face Contracting, a national labour hire and contracting operation that is poised to change the way people work in the industry for the benefit of all. I love what he's doing in that space. I've known Pete for quite some time now, and I just love his energy and his ability to tell it how it is. He's a rough diamond with a heart of gold that will keep you laughing, while at the same time you take away great pearls of wisdom. So please enjoy Peter Finn. Welcome back to Get Invested, Freedom Fighters. Today I've got the great pleasure of having a really good deep dive chat with Pete Finn. He's a great mate of mine. I've been spending some time with him through the We Are podcast and a digital agency that helps both of us in relation to doing what we do on the podcast exercise. Welcome aboard, Pete. Awesome to have you on, mate.
Yeah, good to be here, buddy.
Yeah, excellent, mate. And
take two?
You're in, take two, yes. For those listeners, technology isn't my strong point, and there were some recording issues last time, so we're having another crack at it. Mind you, 6 months between, mate, and a lot of water's flown under the bridge for both of us in that 6 months.
Wow, was it 6 months ago?
6 months, mate. So, look, Pete, for those of you who don't know who Peter Finn is and what you do, can you give us a quick rundown so they can wire into that? Yeah,
sure, Bushy. So my name's Peter Finn, as you mentioned, and I'm a mining kid. I'm from the area of Nyngan, Cobar. Predominantly spent a lot of my youth in Cobar, and now I run a mining company, Face Mining Services, or better known these days as Face Contracting. So predominantly I now operate within New Zealand and Australia.
Awesome, mate. And why do you do what you do, Pete?
One, I don't know anything different, Bushy. I grew up in a mining community. As a human, you're a funnel. And whatever you're taught from 0 to 18, you become. And to firstly identify, what's being fed through my funnel is predominantly who I am, and to identify that and try and make changes to how potentially you're being designed. Is probably one thing.
Yep.
But two, I had a good reflection a little while ago, Bushy, about why I was here. What's my purpose? We live from 0 to when. We don't know when the big fella upstairs is give us a tap on the shoulder. And I started to really think about what can I do to get as much fulfillment in all areas of my life. And ultimately, mate, asking them questions, led me down to a path of who I can impact and who I can make a change for. And look, I'd love to be planting trees and helping kids in Africa and, talking to whoever. But the reality of it is the demographic that I can resonate and relate to the most is me. And that's a mining, construction, knockabout sort of bloke. And if I can impact people that I can resonate and relate with and change their life in some form, small or large, by jumping on podcasts like this, having my own podcast, full production, mate, I think I owe it to who we are to try and make us better. Because as you're probably going to talk about in this podcast, there's a lot of flaws and a lot of, shit in general that we need to make changes in and do differently.
Absolutely, mate. I couldn't agree with you more, and particularly in the mining industry, which has been a numbers game for years, mate. I'm really interested to hone in on what you started there, and that when you mentioned the 0 to 18 year funnel, mate. Let's go right back there, and because I want you to take us on a journey and take us through the story of your life to date, mate. Focusing on what you've invested your time, your energy, and your money in on that journey, and why. Can you sort of just take us through that, buddy?
It's funny, when you have a reflect on life, Bushy, it's good to reflect. It's a bit like when you're trying to lose weight, you jump on the scales and you measure how far you've come from when you're 100 kilos down to 98.5, and you celebrate with 3 beers and you're back to 101 the next day. Humans, we're funny. We forget how bad the hangover really is. We're not very smart. Mate, to reflect, I come from a really big family, Bushy. 6 girls and me, so there's 7 kids in general. Dad was a kangaroo shooter. He was also an electrician, Dad. Mum was a cleaner. It was a pretty plenty of love. Probably could have took a lot of different avenues in life. So when you talk about what I invested in probably all the wrong things, mate.
What were they, buddy? What were they?
Yeah, well, I'd work me days on and I'd drink me days off. Earn good money from the age of 17. I was pretty lucky that I got to play rugby league, and that's how I was validated growing up. So, as a young person, you just want to be validated, and having a good hard reflect on it. Life was pretty fortunate. I had some really good mates. There's a good core of us mates that we grew up with in Cobar and in the Nyngan area that are like brothers to me, and their families as well are really close. So I think it's that you're a product of your environment, and if you surround yourself with good people, good things will happen.
Yeah, so true, mate. So true. So you finished school, you went straight into mining, mate? Was that just because it was there, or what led you to jump straight in there, mate?
Oh, Cobar kid, mate. You sort of you're born into the mine. I remember year 10 come around and all my mates were jumping ship and getting apprentices, and I wasn't the most well behaved young man. And some reason I had this desire that I wanted to finish year 12, and I did finish year 12. And a good mate of mine, who's actually the deputy principal of Cobar High School these days, Shane Carter, he pulled me aside pretty bluntly, Shane, and said, "Mate, what are you doing here? Like, you're just going to be a dickhead for 2 years. We're not going to tolerate it." And he pretty well bluntly said it like that, because obviously I was playing football and stuff as well. And I said, no worries. So I just got past in year 12, and I just wanted to finish. And I did try, I used to jump job to job. But my first job was in the mining game.
Yep.
As a mill operator, I was about 16 or 17 at the time.
Yep.
And ultimately, I just fell into the normal trap because I never grew up with a lot of money, Bushy. But money wasn't in abundance for me.
Yep.
So because of that, my first job out of school was on 70 grand, plus.
Wow. Yeah.
And,
massive.
Mate, don't get me wrong, had a great time, Bushy, for a 17, 18-year-old. I had some really good times.
Wine, women and song, mate. Sex, drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah, pretty well. I just blended straight into the mining lifestyle, and playing football and all that sort of stuff. Good. It was fun. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed everything. And that's what you're meant to do. To be, earning 70 grand at the age of 17 plus, that's awesome. Yeah. From there, though, that developed a lot of social issues. Drugs, alcohol. I didn't realise at the time. It wasn't for years later that I realised, I ended up going underground and doing my underground time. And then I clearly remember that one of the days when I can't remember the age I was, I finished night shift and I had my dad's roof shooting truck, and I was driving home from the Peak Gold Mines. And as I was driving home, my mate, Kempy, was really drunk. It was like 7 in the morning, mate. So I picked him up and said, "Jump in, buddy." And he was telling me how good the night was. Like, it was New Year's Eve, mate. Here I was, 21, 22, underground, driving a truck or doing something, and I was just like, wow, what am I doing? And I remember going home and having a yarn to Dad, and this is where that jump, like I was always looking for the next best thing or the fulfilment. I didn't get the apprenticeships or the ones that I did get a trial for, I never committed to. And so I ended up leaving town, and I ended up going to Newcastle and working in the coal mines. And Newcastle's a very blue collar, my environment, so to say. It's a city for the bush, and rugby league. We played footy there. One of my good mates, Yilesy, lived there. We had better parties. We earned more money. We had better times, and it was really from there I ended up travelling, and as it happens, I met my wife travelling over in Europe, and I think behind every decent man is a decent woman. Even a better woman, mate, I often say. Yeah. And I was very fortunate, Bushy, that Rachel was a business banker.
Right. Gold.
So as she come back over and we moved to Maitland, I started to really think, and it took time. I'm not a very fast learner. I had a few distractions in high school, as mentioned before. And, I started to invest in myself, mate. Started to become, the industry went through a bit of a slump. Sometimes when the industry was on the up, I was earning $5,000 a week net up at Kaiway, and made some good friends and made some good money, but, mate, was not resourceful with it. Like my wife, Rachel, now, she couldn't believe when I first met her how much money I earned and how much I had nothing to show for it. It took her 4 years to go to university and then to leave and only get paid $70,000 what I was earning at 17 years of age.
And that's not unusual in the industry, mate. I mean, there's we get to talk to a lot, and we look after a lot of people in the mining and resources game, and oil and gas as well, for that matter. And it becomes a bit of a habitual lifestyle. Big money. A lot of them are FIFO, so they work hard and can't do anything with it, and they blow it all on the time they've got off, and they're back into the cycle. And 20 years later, they're still doing the same thing, mate. So what was it that you obviously, was it Rachel that sort of was a bit of a aha moment for you, or what happened there, mate? So you're into the cut and thrust of the game. What changed your thinking, and where did that lead you to?
Yeah, I didn't really know how life looked. The way I pictured it was never going to be fulfilling enough, and I just lucky I got enough balls to ask the questions, and it took a little while to find them and ask the questions. And I do put a lot down to my wife, Rachel, because as I said at the very start, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Yeah, and I was very fortunate that she gave me some guidance and kept me around, kept me on. Probably could have gave the old Peter Finn the heave ho. And it's actually really interesting. Me and her have had some in depth. Obviously I've done a lot of self development and investments in myself over the years, Bushy. So firsthand she's seen the growth.
Yeah. Can I just jumping in there? There's not many people who are smart enough to do that, though, Pete. A lot of people are pointing the finger outwards at everyone else as to why things are wrong, and the very few say, "Well, perhaps I've got something to do with this." Is this been something that's embedded in you from day one, that you're able to reflect and say, "Well, shit, maybe I'm contributing to the situation. I might need to do something different." Where does that thought process come from, buddy?
Yeah, it didn't come around easy. It come down to asking questions, mate. Yeah. And the harder the questions you ask yourself and answer honestly is, the more quality of life that you'll live moving forward. So to get back in the story, it comes up very shortly. Started up, moved around the countryside a little, and I was in Orange living, and I hated my job. I started to go up the food chain. I upskilled myself. I thought, I want to become a consultant. So I became a safety consultant. Obviously, I've done some more education around TAFE and upskilled myself. And obviously, having a mining background, I was very relatable to what I did, and I thought I was pretty good at what I did. I obviously a good talker, hence why you got me on, and I run my own podcast. But also, I really enjoyed interacting with people. I think humans are very social creatures where, what's punishment for us? It's solitary confinement. And I started my own company, and of course I was in Orange. It sort of lured me back out home to sunny Cobar. And when I went out home and played a bit of football, I got my first contract as a safety consultant out at CSA and joined Glencore and McMahon's at the time. Yeah. And from there, we brought some accommodation, all that sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
Rachel came out for a little bit.
Where was she at the time, mate?
She was in Orange. I ended up convincing her to come out, and we came out and done up a set of units that we owned in Cobar.
Okay.
Another person that fell into the mining investment trap, by a mining town and, buy units in a mining town, and it didn't really turn out to plan, which we'll get down further into the story. And
Sure.
So I left Cobar, had a few workers working for me, started to get that cohesion on the company front, but then all of a sudden the slump came again. Somewhat, you know how we all sit around, we all have these great ideas, and this is where I was really starting to grow some balls. I was really starting to think that I didn't realise at the time, till I reflect now, this is when I was really starting to push the envelope. So I thought it was a good idea. I was staying with a mate, Benny McManus, and one of the pubs there was pretty run down and not really ran properly, and it was a good old Occidental hotel. Unfortunately, it's burnt down now, and me and Benny decided to pick up the lease.
Wow.
And next thing you know, Peter Finn and Ben McManus are publicans of a pub in Cobar, and that was predominantly the best and the worst mistake I ever made.
Okay.
Having to reflect on it now, it was tough going, mate. I'd never ran a pub before. Mate, you could talk to my wife about it. I remember the first day we opened, she's like, so who's going to work the bar? I said, I don't know. I will. And then all of a sudden, she's just like, holy shit. I've never worked behind a bar before in my whole entire life.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the back of the pub, it was a really good experience, but it was also a very tough experience. You're dealing with miners. It gave me a different appreciation to some of the demographics you deal with in society.
Yeah.
The legislation side of things with the police. In a mining town where alcohol is consumed rather highly, and they're usually doing it to escape reality. And I've seen a lot of things of, people putting money into poker machines and seeing sides of the bar, so to speak, that I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
And so we're in the pub for about a year. We ended up selling out to a mate of ours, Bobby Bruce, and unfortunately it burnt down on Bobby about a year or so later, which is the same as see the pub go. But from there,
mate,
I went home.
I just sorry to jump in and interrupt your flow, mate, but I just want to sort of dig into a couple of things there, because it tells me a lot about your courage, buddy. There aren't too many people. If we go back 2 steps, one, you decided to set up your own consultancy, and that's a move that not many people would have the balls to do. But secondly, you then had the courage to jump completely out of the industry and buy a pub. Now, can you? I just want to understand, and I think the listeners would really appreciate this, your thinking that led you to do both of those things. So why the consultancy, and then why the pub?
They're both really good questions, and we'll start on the consultancy first. Safety people walk. I've been a mining kid all my life, and a safety guy walks into a room, or a safety girl, or whoever, a safety person, and straight away miners go, dickheads. They're like policemen, and it's a real art to gain their trust and to be able to go underground, understand their work environment, understand who they are, not write them up every time they do something wrong. Have a conversation and say, hey, dude, this is really wrong. This is why. And then say, look, I don't want to see it again. You can have a pretty open, transparent conversation, relatable. So I gathered there was a market at the time of the upswing that I could add some serious value around relatability, and obviously I was rather confident in that field and how I did things. So you're right. I was nervous, but I was also getting paid enough, Bushy, to make it more worthwhile. So that was the reason why I did it as well. It wasn't just from a fulfilment point of view, but it was also I thought I could get paid more money, which I did, and because I thought I was worth more money, and the only way I could do it was contract myself out, and the market warranted at the time.
And did that sort of was it also part of the attraction that you were no longer a company man? You had a bit more freedom and autonomy to do things the way you wanted to do it, or that really wasn't part of the thought process?
Yeah, I guess that it was, mate. I think technically deep down, I always wanted to be able to have the ability to influence change. And sometimes as a worker or down the food chain, you could contribute little bits or say something in a pre-start, but you didn't really have that influence to be able to control the outcome or influence the way you wanted it to go. And it was sort of like it was a big giant steering wheel, and you didn't get a chance to hold the steering wheel or, dictate which way it went. And then that's probably what started the craze and built into face mining or face contracting or what it is today.
Okay. Well, let's cover off on the little pub diversion there, mate. But was it just a downturn? You're thinking, shit, there's not going to be much of a future here. What I'm doing, I better find something else. The pub looks pretty good. I spent a lot of time in one, so I might as well own one. Or what were you thinking there, buddy?
Actually, the thinking along the lines were I had some accommodation there, and this is how I was going to start. I was going to use the accommodation for my workers. I was also going to own the pub and also be able to feed my workers through the pub.
Okay.
That was the reason. Okay. Gotcha. That was the original goal, mate. But
yeah. Makes sense.
Market went to shit, mate. So that didn't go to plan. So and it's funny. Sorry, you go.
Yeah. So you went through that for 12 months, and I without ever spending much time in that capacity. My picture of owning a pub is a 24/7 exercise, mate. There ain't too much escape there. Was that pretty much how it was?
Yeah, mate, it's like a ship, dude. You can't leave the ship. And at that time, Rachel had moved back to Sydney, so I was sort of out there a bit solo as well and doing a bit of commuting to and from Sydney to the pub. But it's funny, now I think about it, and I had this conversation in depth with Ronsley, who's our marketing guy we spoke about, our mutual mate. Everybody in the mining game is if you imagine the mining game as a pond full of fish, and we're all fish in the mining game, they all want to get out. Or at least 95% want to get out of the pond. Yeah. And I think that was my first crack at trying to get out of the pond. And getting out made me feel pretty naked, mate.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm really exposed. You gained a lot of skills. Now it was tough, but it's a bit like going to the gym. You go to the gym and do the tough stuff. You'll see the results later on. And I pushed myself right out of my comfort zone, done it like, throwing men out. Had a couple of really good mates that were bouncers, luckily. Seen a whole different side of the world that I hadn't seen before. Yep. And predominantly it was tough, and I didn't enjoy it that much. It put a lot of strain on my relationship with my wife, Rachel, and, myself personally. And to come out the other side of it, it's actually funny. I was reading over your questionnaire sheet before I come into this podcast, and Rachel was looking over it. And I said the pub was the best and the worst mistake I ever made in my whole entire life.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and that's often the case. The biggest challenge becomes the biggest learning exercise, mate. So what did you take away from it, and then what was the next step?
I took away a lot from an emotional intelligence point of view, and how to deal with people and influence people, and probably a lot of business stuff that I didn't think about or know about. Everyone thinks it's a great idea to run a business until they got to pay tax, until they got to run their own MYOB or zero. There's a lot more behind the scenes stuff that you don't realise, and especially having a pub, a lot of cash handling. It was also I don't know, mate, entertaining to say the least, the amount of education that I gained around the pub. But I tell you what it did make me do. The biggest thing that it made me do, Bushy, was appreciate the skill set and the mining construction demographic, or what I know.
Yeah, right.
When I got back into the mining game, I went, I'm never leaving.
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
This is who I am. Yeah. I've stepped out, and I could probably step out again. I could probably, whatever. But now I'm really fine-tuned to what I'm here for and why I'm doing what I do, and that's, help the mining demographic, whether it be a client or a worker or however I can impact the mining or construction demographic, I will. Yeah. And, it's funny, I'm one of the fish that don't want to get out of the pond, and I never will.
That's awesome, mate. That's a massive recognition then, and again, not one that a lot of people take the time to actually come to. And probably the reason why they get so frustrated with it is it's the old story. The grass always looks greener on the other side until you get there, and it's just a bloody parched earth or astroturf, and you can't eat it. And suddenly what you were doing feels a whole lot more comfortable, and you've been one of the few that's been smart enough to recognise it, so that you're now there for the right reasons, mate. But so you sold the pub, and then did you go straight into face contracting, or did you get back?
Because face was sort of already around still, because I was doing that consultancy sort of show.
Okay.
And it was really funny, man. I was only thinking about this a little while ago. I went back to Sydney, sold the pub. It was like a weight being lifted off my shoulders. I was just like, and the missus is like, go get a job, go be a normal human. and I just couldn't. I was like, no, I'm not going to be a normal human. Done a little bit of consultancy work, done a little bit of work around Sydney, and mate, I ran it face, and I ran it in an energy that was predominantly what it is today, mate. I ran it because didn't want a normal job. I had a vision. I had a dream. Now having a young family, I'm very grateful that I ran it when I did.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah. Share your vision with us, though, mate, because that's really important for people to hear as well. What is it, and has it changed?
Funny, yeah, it's evolved. It's evolved in a big way. So when I first rented it, it was a bit like I was always told, if you want to make money, people have got to work for you, and then you'll work for anybody because they pay you enough. And as that went along, it changed, and I went for a really big transition right here. Okay. I faced got off the ground. I had people working for me. I had a really good setup, mate. Yeah. I was on my way.
Yeah.
I had an office in Pitt Street, Sydney.
Wow.
I had a wife's a part-time model. She'll like that comment. Had a nice penthouse apartment where we lived in Sydney.
007.
Yeah, I'm a kid from Burke Street, dude. Like, I didn't have much growing up. And to have all this, I was like, wow, I'm actually making more money, and I'm not even on a mine site. I'm not even underground. Yeah. I'm just, wheeling and dealing and, trying to win contracts. And I've done a few business ventures that were wrong as well, and I've learned a lot more about joint ventures and partnerships and business partners, and there's so much I learned along the way. And we won't even go into them details. I mean, your typical entrepreneur, once I got some traction, mate, I was willing to kick some tyres and I burned some energy, and it was actually kicking them tyres and burning them energy have made me so in tune today in the direction I have. But the real turning point was I had a lot of money. I had a nice wife. I had a partner. I talked about a really good business that had a really good gold nugget, which is my hometown. I really enjoy going home today. Mum and dad still live out there. Families out there. Clients are not just clients, they're also personal mates. Yeah. And then the new clients that do come on now, I take extra effort to become personal mates because, life's too short to be hanging out with dickheads in general. You need to embrace weirdnesses, but at the end of the day, you want to try and do it. It's not what you do, it's who you do it for. They're the big reasons. Yeah. I went through a real big stage where I was really depressed, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I remember looking myself in the mirror going, all them things, house, unit, office in Pitt Street, going, what's wrong with you, mate? Why could you possibly be a sad man? Like, had no idea. I couldn't put my finger on it. I was just absolutely gutted that I actually had everything I ever dreamt of. And I had no idea why I was sad. And I started to really think about it. So I went down and seen a psychologist, got on some antidepressants,
How long ago was this, mate?
Oh, gee, you're pushing the memory a bit now. What is it, 2000 and must have been... Yeah, good 5 or 6 years ago now. Bullshit, yeah.
So you had everything. To the outside world, you're a guru. You had it all, but on the inside, you were pretty gutted. Even
Why? On the inside, I was looking at my life going, hey, I've got everything. Why am I sad? I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't figure out why I was really feeling unfulfilled or I was sleeping and making money. Yeah. And I didn't know. I was feeling a bit lost, so I went down and seen a psychologist. I got on to me. I ended up ringing a mate who's been through some depression stuff, and I said, "Hey, mate, what do you reckon?" He's like, "Mate, half the world are on antidepressants." So I got on them, and the footy club across the road, and whenever you move to a new town, I always used to rock up to a footy club, know no one. You drink 10 beers and make an idiot of yourself and play a decent game of footy. All of a sudden, you got a bunch of mates that'll look after you. So the Arncliffe Scott boys down in Sydney, they were really good to me. And as I started to get really fit and healthy again, I started to get a bit more clarity. But I was really struggling to relate to the lady that I was seeing, the psychologist lady, really nice lady. But long story short, there was this girl that I grew up with in Cobar called Anna Fryer, who's Anna Hewen now. Yep. And her partner, Carl Hewen, is actually one of my best mates these days, but he's also my life coach. Right. And this is where we talk about asking questions, looking for answers. I've already gone through a phase where I knew I could reach out and had plenty of energy and do a lot of things. Yep. I knew I had this ability, but I wanted to channel it and I wanted to get myself right to do that. Yep. So I met Carl, and he's a holistic health coach, and he helped me align my values to what's important to me, my goals, got me physically where I needed to be, and put me on track. And from there, that gave me a lot of clarity about what I was going to do moving forward. Look, I took some adjusting. I wasn't an easy fix, mate.
Lifetime habits, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's what I talk about, that funnel of, breaking down. It's like people having a fixed mindset. People, I haven't got a fixed mindset. It's like, dude, have you ever broken yourself down to vulnerability to see exactly who you are and what you are? And that's what I did ultimately. I broke myself right down to find out who I was really. And, it's only been the last 2 years or 12 months or whatever, where it's it's always fine tuning. I'm always realigning my goals. Look, I'm not going to not have a beer or 10. I'm still going to have a burger and a feed. I'm still who I am. Do I do things differently and extra? And I think the biggest thing is the top 2 inches, Bushy. The way I think, I think was it $4 billion people a year or a day live on $5 less.
Yeah,
mate. Me and you probably paid that in this conversation already just by technology.
Yeah. Spot on, mate. Let's come back to your values, because I think you've hit on a thing that's relevant to not just people that work in the mining and resources sector, but blokes in Australia generally. We're rough and we're tough, and we don't like to think too hard. And vulnerability, you got to be joking, mate. We're not going to be vulnerable. Someone might think we're a wuss. Mate, I fully admire the fact that you've gone, well, no, hold on, I really need to get to the bottom of this. And you mentioned your values, mate, and the values is a thing that very few people actually get in touch with, because if they do, and then they start to only do things in alignment with them, and then surround themselves with people that have the same values, suddenly life looks very different. And I've been on a similar journey, so I'm talking from my own personal experience here, mate. But can you share what your values are as a result of that? And given the work you did with your mentor, what was the penny drop thing that made you think differently?
Pretty deep question, Bushy. I didn't know this is your life episode. But
well, I just think people are going to learn a lot from it, because people in the mining industry are going through this, mate. They might pretend they're not, and they're rough and they're tough and all the rest of it. But in the back of their minds, they're thinking exactly what you're thinking. Yeah,
you bang on, mate. It's, what I did and what I encourage people to do is I can only lead by example, and people will follow. They might not want the change now. You'll want the change when you want the change. Yeah. Right? If you want an answer, if you want a question, reach out. Yeah. I'm happy to have a conversation. Happy to help anyone who wants help. Now, I've got mates or even family members that I go, shit, you really need to change this. But they won't. You say, look, no worries, come and see us. And they will come see you, when the time's right for them, when they're ready. Yeah. That's the biggest thing you got to identify, because, you're right. It will come about when they, hopefully I listen to this podcast and some guy who's, looking at their financials or the way they live life and what makes them happy, are thinking, well, maybe I'm looking at doing programs with Carl that are about, pushing out things that we can do to influence the industry, for people to drop these masks, have a work mask. It's like the grumpy foreman. I've got a good foreman, Jeff Mullins out in Denver. He's actually a really good bloke, and he's got the grumpy foreman down pat. He always smiles on the inside, but it's a mask, and everyone's got these masks that they wear in different environments, their family environments, their work environments, and when you break them down, you're really just changing characters to whatever environment you're in. Yeah. No, I can guarantee you pump a few beers into me, you're probably going to get a few Fs, and it's all about that. Pop
the beers into me, mate, to get a few of them.
Yeah, but so what I did with Carl, he helped me align my values to what are important to me. So my health and self-improvement is number one. Okay. If I look after my health and be the best version of myself, then I can be the best version for guys like you, Bushy. Yep. My kids at home, my wife, my work fronts, the things that are important. So you need to be the best version of yourself, That's the first one. Obviously, second is family. Yeah. And you sort of got to take that selfish tack, because you got to be better yourself before you can be good for your family.
Yeah, so true.
The better you are, the better you can be for everybody else. Yeah. Family, they're everything, mate. I'll just move straight on to the next one, because I'm pretty sure most people can resonate with their family. I've got a few friends that have minimal family, and I encourage people that do have minimal family to look for people that you want to classify as family. People like, I've got friends that are will be like family for me forever.
Yeah.
They're out there. You just got to make the energy and effort to go find them.
Yeah.
And hang out with people that are, bringing the best out of you. You don't have to agree with everybody.
Spot on.
But you can take out of it what you want and to take the good stuff. There's plenty of dickheads in my life that attributes to them I don't like.
Yeah.
But there's attributes to them that I love. And I go, I'll take that every day of the week.
Yeah.
But, so family's a big thing, and I my family I love and everybody loves, and I think it's a very fortunate thing to have, and people need to suck that in and breathe it in and make the most of it, because the next one I talk about of values is relationships.
Yeah.
You talk about people on their deathbed, Bushy. I can guarantee you, righto, you're going to be on your deathbed and you are not going to think about the money you made, or any of that sort of stuff. You're going to think about the legacy you leave, the relationships you had in it. That's predominantly the only thing you take out of life is the relationships you have in life. Yeah. And they're key for me. And that's everything from me and you to me and my clients. So I sit back one day and go, hey, I knew this property guy once, really funny bloke named Bushy. You know what I mean? This is what he did. That's all it is. It's a memory. Yeah. You can make all the money in the world, and that's the best thing, obviously what we'll talk about as we get on this podcast, but it's being able to leave something, a legacy, not only from a financial point of view or a nest egg point of view, but also from an emotional attachment point of view.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that we get to do things like this.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day when I'm past, my grandkids will jump on this and go, what's this thing called a podcast? Anyone heard of it? And they'll dust it off and listen to it and go, oh, this is my great-great-grandfather Peter Finn. Gee, he was an air tripper. Whatever. So relationships are key, and you know that. And I know you're big on it. In regards to even the process, how you go through things. And obviously coming in next is work fronts. Work fronts, especially now for me, especially why I'm really in tune with the mining and construction demographic.
Yeah,
it's extremely important that I focus on these because they help me provide for a lifestyle that I want to live.
Yep.
But two, most importantly, they get me the impact, the demographic that I want to impact and relate to and resonate with the most.
Yeah.
And what we all chase, Bushy, is fulfilment. I think I say this quite regularly to people. That feeling when you walk an old lady across the road and you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
And that's what people chase is fulfillment. I want the fulfillment to be able to get as much as I can so I can give as much as I can. And the only way I can do that is by delivering on my work fronts, doing a good job, leading by example, and then that'll give me influence to be able to, give more, and hopefully someone listens to this podcast or whatever they do. They might not change straight away, but it's these little things that pop up and they see an avenue to go down.
Yeah.
And it's not, and that's what I say to people, it's not this one podcast you're going to listen to that's going to change your life. It's all the small things you're going to do consistently that are going to change it over time.
Yeah, no, awesome, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it, mate. Like the last one I had, there's maybe a bit of a limiting belief, but it's really comfortable and happy with who I am. You've got to be comfortable in your own skin and happy with who you are. And you sit in a quiet room and sit by yourself, and I can guarantee you, I can sit there and think very happy and controlled thoughts, and a guy across from me can do exactly the same thing, but think really negative, unhappy thoughts. So controlling your mindset, physically, mentally, emotionally, it's all connected, mate. So you've got to be happy with yourself. And if you're not happy, you need to go and find answers and make an effort to live life to the fullest, because the reality of it is 1 to when. You're 0, 1, 2, 3. When's big fella saying, hey, Bushy, you're 70 next month, mate, I'm going to go and tap you on the shoulder.
That's right. That's exactly right.
You got to run it live and live it to whatever, and go search for the answer. You might never find it, but I don't know if you're going to find it. I just started to resonate to people that the way I grew up and who I can give to. Will my kids and that do? I don't care. I just want them to, whatever they do, they enjoy it. They love it. It's purposeful. Everything's got purpose behind it. Because when you live a life full of purpose, oh shit, mate, it makes me excited even talking about it.
Yeah, bloody awesome, mate. In sort of really getting clear on what your values and therefore your goals are, that I'm sure that now influences Face Contracting in the way what you do with your team and those that you're working with. as part of what you do, mate, do you help the people that are, representing FACE when you're putting them into mining sites and whatnot? Do you have that conversation around what their own values and goals are, mate?
Yeah, mate. So what happens is when you develop your values to what's important to you, you build goals off that. So all your goals are related to a value.
Yeah.
And that's how I establish my goals, yearly. And you've got to look at them every day and making sure you're doing them little things. It's like having a New Year's resolution. I'm not going to drink piss this year. 2 weeks later, you're around bushes having a barbecue, in Adelaide having a few schooners, aren't you? So it's the reasons why you're doing it. When they're connected to you, when you're really connected to your values, them goals will flow on. And you're right. So one thing that I've been going through as I grow, like right now in the mining market, Bushy, the market's gone really busy and it's keeping everybody, fat from a workload point of view.
Yep.
Now, so winning work necessarily isn't an issue.
Yeah.
Delivering on work is the issue.
Yep.
Anyone can win work as delivery. And a big thing that I've been working on with Ronsley, who is a psychologist, and people that are around me, is working on ways that I can influence the fish in the pond.
Yep.
They come and work at what mines I know they're going to work into. So, there's a fair process to what I go through before bringing on a client. I want to get to know them and what their workforce is like, what their camp's like, what are they doing for their workers, and vice versa. It's got to be a pretty open, transparent relationship. It's not what you do, it's who you do it for. Yeah. And then the people that I have in play, mate, my team is critical. Yeah. I want them being the best version of themselves, because the reality of it is I'm one man and I can't be everywhere and I can't be anywhere and I can't be, like all the places they want me to. I've got blokes ring me up and say, hey, Finny, can you come to our mine site? I'm like, mate, I just don't have the time. Yep. Or, you're pushing me away from the values of how I want to live my life. So, hence why I started the podcast, started talking to guys like you, because I'm trying to convey a message out there to a broader audience. I'm trying to introduce a podcasting platform that people can listen to on their flight or at home in their shed or, even after
driving
work.
The trucks on the job, mate. I mean,
so many ways, dude. And I think the biggest thing for me, I'm a bit lost for what I was going to say, Bushy.
That's all right, mate. I'm going to leap into the space there, mate, and because I do a lot with miners and oil and gas and the resources to help mainly workers try and find a way out. But what I pick up is that a lot of them are just treated as numbers, and that stems from the top. Given what you're talking about with revolving anything around the values, am I picking up that you've been to sites or looked at contract opportunities and said, no, this isn't a fit, I'm sorry, we're not going to do this work? How often have you said no?
I haven't said it a great deal because I'm not a very big company, but in saying that, I always try and make a really conscious effort to go out of my way. Like, so painful. You're really touching on a pain point here of mine, because I want it, it's a bit like, a mine ringing me up saying, hey, Finny, we need 10 truck drivers and 6 fitters or whatever they might ring up and ask. And I say, that's cool, mate. Do you mind if I send a representative aside? Because one thing that I'm trying to go for in my business right now is, and that's why I've got to work on my team, is because you're not talking directly to Peter Finn, should not mean you're not getting the same Peter Finn service. Yes. Like the people that I'm employing are going in there with the utmost skill set and respect to do the best job possible. And what I say to my clients who are in the hands of maybe a labour coordinator or an operations guy or whatever, I say, if you're not happy with any of this service, that's when you ring me. Yeah. And say, hey, Finny, I'm not happy with this and this. Cool. Let me go and address it. And let's watch it and make changes. Unfortunately, a lot of people like to crack the whip and they like to feel that they got that manly power over you to say, hey, mate, you've done a shit job here, rah, 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 and they want to get the win up, and you let them have it and go, no worries, and it's how you adjust to moving forward and go, righto, they don't like this is how we're going to improve to move forward, and always evolving. It's sort of also the rule is don't let the shit people affect the way you feel. If you let the shit people affect the way you feel, ultimately you let the shit people win. Back on the whole saying is who you surround yourself with is who you become. Yeah. And so with clients, what I like to do, Bushy, and what I really try to do, and sometimes it's hard because a lot of them are maybe really busy, or what I like to say, busy being unorganised. Because I sort of say, have a listen, take a bit of time for yourself, listen to my podcast or have a conversation with me, because I'm trying to do something different. The better I understand their operation and what they want and develop a relationship with them, the better I can service them. And then let's be clear cut, like I'm not a big company. I'm trying to make everything that I do personal. Nothing's just business for me, Bushy. Everything's personal.
Yeah.
I want a personal relationship. I want it to be personal. I'm happy to take a pineapple if I get something wrong and say, I got it wrong. And I'll learn from it and I'll go again, because, it's not what you do, it's who you do it for. And I think the biggest thing for me is, understanding people's operations and how they want it, because the better I understand it is the better I can sell it to the workforce or what they need from a skill set point of view. And don't get me wrong, I'm talking to a couple of companies now as I'm trying to head over to WA, and I said, could you listen to this podcast? I've got to talk to a couple of your site foremen or your site supervisors, just so I got a bit of an insight to, how they do things on site and what they're like as people, so I can sort of say, hey, I met the supervisor the other day. He's a pretty tough old fella, but he means well, and you look after him and and vice versa. So you can sort of get the worker in the right mindset that they're going to go into this work environment. Yeah. So many miners jump hole to hole these days thinking that it's greener or going to be better. I can guarantee you, no matter what pub you go to, Bushy, you're going to run into a dickhead. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to, mate. I have said no to work, and I have shied away from it, from depending on who it is and the effort and energy they're prepared to go. Once again, you can play the human game or you can play the number game. Yeah. And the more you play the human game, the better results you'll get. So ultimately, being a contractor or a labour hire supplier, we're the ones that create the environment to bring the best out of the workers. Yeah. We've got to paint the picture to them and say, hey, mate, this is the environment you're going to. It's hot. Yeah, everybody knows it's hot there. But the supervisor, the foreman are all real good men. The camp's really good. Yeah. All these little things you got to try and paint the picture for, because the better they understand what they're going to, is they're already in that mindset that this is what it's going to be like, and you're trying to develop a relationship with them guys. And I think one of the questions you asked in your PDF that you sent through was, what podcast do I encourage people to listen to? Yeah. And I think it's number 12 on my podcast, Full Production, where it's pretty well interviewed with one of my best mates, Brett Robbo, on his podcast called Your Life of Impact. Yeah. And I don't know what it was, Bushy. I think just me and Robbo being childhood friends, and him knowing me so well, and him knowing, vice versa, grew up like brothers or cousins, so to speak. Yeah. The way he articulated the message from me, I was quietly impressed myself. And that's something that I try and get all my clients and all my workers or potential workers to listen to, because I need them to get in the right mind space to why they want to come to work. Understanding people's why is important. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. Now, if I was running a mining company and I'm suddenly stuck and I've got all this work coming on and I need to get people on board, why would I be talking to Face Contracting rather than someone else?
Yeah, it's funny, I talk about 8 out of 10. One of the things that is put in place is we actually employ 10 people at Face, and we keep 8. Yeah, okay. And that's the whole reason to how we go through an interview process, how we pick our workers, and understanding their why. I've met some guys with some incredible skill sets, and I think to myself, mate, why are you coming over here for? Oh, I want more money. And I go, mate, so when I give you this job for $3 or $4 more, and then Bushy Martin comes along and offers you another $2 or $3, are you going to do the same to me? And predominantly they are. It's sort of like the guy, listen to your podcast. I go, did you really? And then they go, no, I didn't. You can tell pretty quickly they didn't or didn't listen to it. Yeah. So, look, I don't care if they do go with me or don't go with me. Look, it's up to them individually. A lot of them have probably developed relationships over the past. A big thing that I see, this is one of many examples. I see I just won a client back. Love you, I won't mention names. And they had a labour supplier in there, and they had this guy who was really good bloke. I've met him before. He's doing a good job servicing him. And then that company that he was working for moved him to another area or another branch of the company. And he just left that mine and stopped servicing him. And they said, here's your new girl. And this new girl's come in, and she's maybe said a few things ill towards about the guy that just left. And the client's like, well, mate, actually that guy was really good to us. And just didn't harness that relationship was already developed. You know, you really got to, you know, one thing that I say, I've got a new guy started, Wade Greenwood, Boilermaker, been a deputy principal, really interesting character.
Yeah.
And the process we're even going through now about making him slowly develop a relationship with the clients. You know, just as an example, we'll CC him on some emails. I'll make sure he's up to speed to the dot before he gets in front of them.
Yeah.
Because he needs to know who's who, how everyone works, what their personality's like, how do they want it. And eventually, by the time he gets there, he's already well across that operation. I see it so often in projects. You know, they sack a project manager and bring a new one in. All of a sudden, the new one comes in. He's treating the client like shit. They're already having disputes because he's come in the wrong tone. He's upset a foreman or a supervisor who ultimately control the workforce. Yeah. Then the turnover starts happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate, she's a vicious cycle, dude. Like, we really need to be smarter about what we do. And like that's, I'm not trying to sell myself, but I think we need to have an open, transparent conversations, and tough conversations are what make relationships, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And it's creating that environment. I ain't going to have 10 beers, Bushy, and call you up and call you a dickhead.
No.
You know, if I really value your relationship with me, I'm probably going to say, hey, Bushy, come around home for a cup of tea, and I'm going to say, hey, man, I don't like this. Yeah. You know, you got to create them environments to have them tough conversations. They're ultimately the ones that make relationships and how much you value.
Yeah, no, it's spot on, mate. If we flip it around and look at why, if I'm in the industry and I'm looking for a job, why wouldn't I go direct to the company versus going through Face?
Yeah, it all depends on their appetite, mate. You know, humans have got two feelings, Bushy. It's certainty or uncertainty.
Yep.
There's no in between, buddy.
Yep.
And then obviously we talk about from zero to when. What is certainty? You know, how do you want to live your life? Do you want a full-time job with a big company like BHP or Rio Tinto? Because that's cool. You can get that. You'll get annual leave and plenty of benefits and sick leave and all that sort of stuff. But if the downturn comes, there's a good chance they're going to look at their operations too and say, hey, we've got to move on. Like, I think a lot of it's based not around having a full-time job. It's based around what they want and why they're there and what they're trying to achieve in life. If you're just going through the motions, no worries. Like, that's what I get to watch people work for me. I'm not saying I'm the right fit. Yeah. I try and treat people like humans, and I try to get it back in return. So, for example, I'll give you an example of what mining culture can be like from a manpower point of view. The downturn came. I had a bit of a development contract. I chucked the jumbo operator in the seat, and he was actually doing it really tough at the time. He was a mate, and he goes, "Oh, thanks, Finny. I was doing it really tough at home. I wasn't having much money or much luck for work, and I was only paying him $60 an hour. This guy is probably on 110 or $90 an hour now because he is pretty good, but he once again had made a lot of poor financial decisions where he needed to work and couldn't afford not to be in work. So I got him on track, and all of a sudden, one day he rings me up and goes, "Oh, hey, Finny, this is me last week." And I think, shit, mate, like, seriously, last time I spoke to you about a month ago, you were doing it really tough and you're really grateful and, you appreciate and you're going well at work. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I got another job in Africa." And I'm thinking, well, mate, how long have you been applying for a job in Africa? He goes, "Oh, only the last couple of weeks." And I said, shit, mate. So now he left me. This is a long time ago. Now he left me. He went to Africa, and I'm down a jumbo operator, which is a very important piece of machinery in development of the mine progress. Yeah. And the client saying, "Hey, Finny, that's a pretty big stuff up that old mate's left," and I couldn't find someone in time to replace him. The time you get a medical clothed, trained up, and
shit, he left in the lurch. Bloody hell.
Yeah, so anyway, he left, and sure enough, 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, I get this private phone call from a Skype account on my phone at 2 a.m. And here's this guy in Africa, nearly in tears, saying, "Shit, it's dangerous over here." And I think, dude, what did you expect? And what happened was, I could have brought him back. Like, he's a walk-up start. He's got his medical. He's got his clothing. He's got his induction. He's trained up on the machine. He knows the mine. But morally, I couldn't do it, Bushy. No. I was like, shit, dude, you really shit on me. And now you want me to come back and give you your old job back. And, it's back to the old human beings thing.
It's values again, mate. Yeah. No loyalty in what I'm hearing with this guy. And then when he fucks up, it's, okay, well, now want it back. Well, it cuts both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, mate. And what happens is ultimately they think they're entitled, or, they think it's greener on the other side. And technically it's not, mate. It's It's what you make it in your own top 2 inches and what you're doing between making your money work for you. And hence why I'm on your podcast and you're coming up on mine shortly, is because it's a big concern in the industry, not just about who people work for or what they do, is what they're doing with their money.
Yes.
You know, what is $1 or $2 extra actually going to make to your final outcome? Probably not a great deal, because you're just going to jump job to job and you know, think it's greener or better somewhere else. Like, I don't know, mate. It's a whole can of worms that I've delved down with some deep psychology work with Ronsley Vars about how I can make these guys realise how good of an opportunity they really got, live in that grateful state of mind and appreciate what the mining opportunity is, and make the most of it to work for them to live the most fulfilled life possible, whatever that may be. But if they're not going to ask the questions, they're never going to know. I can guarantee you that guy there is still jumping job to job, doing the same old shit, different day.
This is a hot topic for me too, mate, because you know, every time I sit down with someone out of the resources game, and I start asking them the questions, the first thing they say to me is, well, I feel trapped and I can't see a way out. And I said, well, I'm going to give you one. Let's get really clear on exactly what your perfect lifestyle looks like and how much that lifestyle costs, and then you're going to keep focusing on the work, but you're going to do the work because you know you're heading towards where you want to get to, and that's being able not to have to work if you don't want to, spend more time with your friends and family, create a lifestyle that your wife and your kids and your friends and everyone else can get the benefit out of. And as soon as we show them that roadmap, mate, suddenly their outlook changes, because it's, okay, well, I'm not stuck on the rat race. I'm doing this for a reason. I know how long I have to do it, and then I'm probably going to keep doing it, but I don't have to anymore. And as soon as you don't have to do anything, you're doing it because you want to. The whole perspective changes, and I guess the reason why, you know, I love having a chat to you, Pete, is I think we share the same view on that, and this is where I see a team approach, assisting the people that work for you, and then by virtue of that, they'll become the example to the rest of the people in the mining industry, because they'll see the difference in people working for Face versus either a company men or working for someone else. They go, shit, these guys are actually enjoying what they're doing, and it looks like they're going somewhere.
You know what? I look at guys that have a lot of influence on site, so general managers and mine managers and superintendent. And I look at them guys and say, yous are the ones that have the ability to influence and implement things below. Yeah. The reason why I seem to do pretty good is because I create them environments, lead by example, and offer them opportunities. If someone rang me today and said, hey, I have mates do it, and I've got them on the podcast. You know, I have Andrew Hartshort, guys like yourself. I go, hey, mate, I need some financial advice. Hey, I want to buy a house. Going, mate, before you just go do it, go and ask the questions. Go and talk to the experts. And I think that, you know, you give people growth in whatever area, whether it be personal development. You know, they get an achievement by getting promoted at work. They get when they get that achievement fulfillment or that growth, like I talked about before, losing weight, they get achievement, they get fulfillment. Yeah. That's what they all chase. They all chase to be validated, to be wanted, to be desired. I swear, dude, we ring people and we can pick them a mile away on the phone interview when they just want to ring up and have a phone interview just to be wanted. They just want to know that they're wanted for the job, just so they can say no to it. Yeah, and you can nearly pick them a mile away. Yeah, interesting. And it's funny that when really they could just be quite happy at the place they've got. And, you know, that's got to come from the top, though. You know, a lot of these guys who are in the hot seat need to be the ones leading by example and opening these doors and saying, hey, mate, there's avenues actually here, but you guys have got to want to take them. And that's probably where Face is really capitalised, is actually having these opportunities with guys like yourself and other people that I'm working with in the industry, and, you know, whether it be even career progression. You know, guys come and see me and say, hey, mate, I want to be on the K-Bolter. Cool, mate. Look, I personally don't have a K-Bolton contract, but I've got mates in the industry that do. Yeah. And I go ring up, you know, Redpath or McMahon's or whoever I may ring, like just people that I know. It's a small game, and say, hey, mate, I've got a guy who'd make a really good K-Bolt offsider and, you know, be, you know, worth to go the distance. And look, sometimes I might contract with them directly because everyone wants to try before they buy. I've been specialised in, you know, people going through me as a trial person. You know, they stay on my books for 3 to 6 months, and if they're any good, they'll grab them. You know, people have got to, you know, realise that there's an opportunity in front of them, but they've got to go there with the skill set and present an opportunity for growth, and they've got to want it, not just say they want it.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely spot on, mate. Mate, I wanted to sort of pivot a little bit because in my own journey so far and having spoken to thousands of people in the game and done a lot of reading and everything else in that regard, I've found that a lot of Aussies and a lot of people in the resources game, they invest in their work and their career and they focus on the income side. But what I've seen is that those that really achieve the freedom that we're talking about also invest in growth assets that will ultimately replace their work through passive income over time. What growth assets do you invest in outside of Face, mate?
Yeah, diversification's key, mate.
Yeah.
One I talked about when I was in Cobar and I brought a set of units in Cobar. I made some good money at the time, but how many people do you know that still own property up in Emerald or, and places that aren't so good in different commodities?
Yeah.
Especially, I think Port Hedland's probably the big one, isn't it?
Ooh, ouch. Yeah.
Ouch, mate. Yeah, I know some good places though, like Roxby Downs, like that. That's a really good mine there at Olympic Dam, and that place is not going anywhere for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's a long-term investment, Bushy. So look, diversification's a big thing, like shares. Reasonably get something in Woolworths. Just trying to diversify and a lot of different things. I also think property, hence why I'm on your podcast. Me and my wife are talking about buying some, maybe a kiwi fruit orchard or a dairy, and just trying to diversify our portfolio because obviously I'm only 33, Bushy, so I'm only young.
You are young, mate. Yeah.
And I started when I was in mine when I was 16, so I don't know anything different, and I've seen the waves already, and I've lived them.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky that if I do fall on my ass, I've probably got enough energy and time in front of me to go again, as long as my health stays in check.
Yeah.
Not saying that I plan on falling on my ass, but it's about, enjoying the moment and, protecting yourselves and sharing your risk as much as possible. Whatever your risk profile is, mine might be a bit higher for the sheer fact of my age. I might dull down another 3 or 4 years and I think, well, you know what, I'm happy to leave it in the long-term stuff and just enjoy what I do.
Yep.
Risk profiles, the money earning, what do you want to do with it, what you're interested in, what your purpose is for life, just everything in general, mate.
So
does that give you much clarity? I don't know if it
I might drill a little bit deeper than that in terms of what. Well, let's go right back. What was the first dollar you invested, and what did you invest it in, and how did that go? And then we'll talk a bit about your property experience, mate. So, where was the first dollar you invested outside of work?
Cobar RSL Club. Chucked a good $20 in the Golden Isle, mate. I think I got the feature. I think I had to share it with my mate. We might have put $20 in each, actually. So look.
After that, mate.
Yeah, didn't go well for me, mate. After that, he ended up liking the music. But for me personally, first investment I really made was in myself.
Yeah.
Going to TAFE. Yeah. Outside of work didn't put me through TAFE.
No.
Work didn't say, here, Finney, go do a trainer assessor course. Here, Finney, go do a supervisor course.
Yep.
I went and did it myself.
Yep.
I invested in myself. Yep. And that was the first step that I made to really turning my life around to what it is today and moving forward, was taking that time to invest in myself.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. And then on the physical investment side, whether it be shares, property or whatnot, have you done any of that to date, mate, or not?
Yep. So we done a little bit in Queensland Rail when that first come around. We also brought a set of units in Cobar. And look, in Cobar, when we brought them units, we just brought it just before the upswing, and we made some really good money. We're making $10,000 a month sort of the property. It was a pretty high, but obviously on the flip side of that, mate, about 6 months later, I was making $2,000 a month. It went down, a large amount. So it's the same thing. It's the waves. I've actually sold them now, which I was fortunate to do, but also as I sold them, just my time, and I actually need them again. But that's life. You got to roll the punches and learn from that. So they're probably, and I obviously own a house here in New Zealand, where I'm currently based. Obviously, I'm moving to Perth in a couple of months to open up a face office over there.
Awesome.
I think Perth's a great market to probably get in on now. She's about to to go up again.
Yep, definitely.
So, in regards to investments, mate, that's probably me in a nutshell. We are looking at probably talking to guys like you about our own property portfolio, to how we can grow and do the longer-term thing.
Yep.
I think it's everyone's. I think age has got to have a thing to do with it. You know, you got to look at your life and where you sit. And I know you're doing it. You know, from your age, you're interested to try and help and give people the influence they need to be able to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's both a fear and a frustration of mine. I want to wake people up to go, right, you're earning shitloads of dough right now. Let's make that money work for you to get to a point where you don't have to work. And it's not that hard, mate. With 15 to 20 years up someone's sleeve, it's a very easy ride and won't have any impact on your life. So, I'm very keen to work with you to assist others in that capacity, mate. But let's jump to the future for a minute then, Pete. And I want you to paint a picture for us of what is your ideal lifestyle and what's the difference between that lifestyle and your lifestyle now, and then what are you going to do between now and then to make that happen? So let's start with the ideal lifestyle, mate. What does it look like for you and your good wife and family?
Yeah, scarily enough, Bushy, I'm pretty well there, mate. Fantastic. I have a very fulfilled life. I'm validated. I enjoy what I do. The biggest thing is health.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, not just for me, but for my daughter and for my son and for my wife, and to appreciate the people that are still here, like my mum and dad, my sisters, my father-in-law and mother-in-law. They're really nice people. You need to embrace the relationships. How it looks in the future, I think I'm only just starting my mining influence path. Yeah. And I'm really keen to try and give as much as I can to the industry and service an industry that I care about and has given me so much.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people in the industry that I think can give more. You know, I hear a lot of people do a lot of talking. They talk about women in mining. They talk about financial education. They talk about mining engineer shortage. Instead, what are we actually doing about it? I know some really good guys around, like Kyle D'Souza. I think he works for the School of Mines. He runs a podcast for over there in Western Australia. And, mining engineers are a massive shortage at the moment. Yeah. And, what are we doing to, create the environment to get the most of them and make it more attractive? There's all these, she's a whole nother conversation, mate, you can get me on. So, there's so many rabbit holes that I can go down to what my life looks like moving forward.
Yeah.
As long as I'm happy and fulfilled and working for good people and helping good people and helping operations and watching growth and watching change and being able to make an impact, mate, I'm good. Yeah. I'm super excited about how much smarter and wiser I am going to become because of the attitude that I'm carrying into it, and very channeled energy in that right direction.
Yeah.
I look forward to, someone listening to this podcast who might think, shit, Face is someone that I'm keen to have. It might even just be a chat, dude. It might be nothing else.
Yeah.
They might even want a tip to how they should tackle a problem. I'll give it for free. I'm not here to, I can make money, no worries at all. But it's making money and enjoy and make the money for the right reasons. I think people sometimes when they're just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
They're just doing it for the money, If you really want to get out of the fish pond, you'll get out. But if you're not really, not willing to make the effort. I tell you, there's actually a really interesting podcast that I listened to. I'd done with a guy named Tony Andrews on my podcast. Yeah. Tony's an old mentor of mine, foreman, grew up with his son. His son's one of my jumbo operators. Corey Andrews, really good bloke and really good at what he does. We started mining around the same time. Yeah. He actually had to get a written approval to go underground because he was a little bit young at the time. Yeah. And I was talking to Tony, and Tony's on his deathbed, mate. He's got cancer, and you should hear him talk about life and miners and what we should do. He knows nothing different. Yeah. And I think when people start living in that state of, just appreciating what you've got in life and being grateful, your mindset will take you a long way to how you tackle the world moving forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Just a bit of a litmus test for me, Pete, and I talk to everyone we help in this regard. So you're living the dream now as you see it. If you were to pull yourself out of the business today, how much longer would you be able to sustain your current lifestyle? Because what I'm trying to find out is how much as your business and what you do reliant on you.
It's funny. There's one thing I talked about earlier on the podcast about because you're not talking to Peter Finn shouldn't mean you're not getting the same Peter Finn service. So I'm starting to surround myself. My company is only as good as my team around me.
Yeah.
Look, I've got a few other sources of income which I spoke about earlier on in the podcast. If I pull myself out. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to pull myself away from the business where ultimately my job is jumping on podcasts, getting people on my podcast, networking, having tough conversations, and people getting it done. Because one thing I learned very early on is that you can have the idea, but then to go do the idea as well, it's a very time-consuming, a lot of energy. And, the people that work within FACE, I want them to be here. I want them to work for me. Don't be here for money. Don't be here because you like me. Be here because of you. I put all my staff through Carl, my life coach. Everyone gets self-improvement classes, which I pay for because I want them to be the best version of themselves. So they ring me up and say, "Hey, Finny, I think I'm going to move on." Yeah. I go, "Cool." I had a girl work for me, Carissa. I put her through Carl. And she left now. She's been with me for a long time, and I'm pretty sure she's rang up one day and said, "You got another job?" She was like, "Nah, I haven't got another job. I'm just ringing you, telling you that I think that it's time that I moved on."
Right.
Cool. And then all of a sudden, everyone around town's like, "Oh, I wonder what happened there. I wonder if they had a fight." And everyone's like, "Actually, no." Everyone's like, "No, we're good friends. Actually, when I go to Cobo, I'll probably stay at Chris's house." It's her and her husband, JR, are good friends of mine. Yeah. But when people are so used to that conflict or issue, and I think if you invest in your people, they'll invest back into you and they see their opportunity.
Absolutely.
And if someone rang me up and said, "Hey, Finny, I'm out of here to go start my own lawnmower business," give us a ring anytime you want to hear, mate, or need some advice.
Yeah. Yeah, Bream, it's really interesting to listen to you because we've got very similar values, and in our business, we've had a number of people have come and gone and then come back. Because it's like, okay, well, clearly where you're at, you need to be doing this, and we're right behind you, but the door's open because you're part of our family now, and you always will be because we share the same values, and if you allow that freedom, that removes all the conflict, mate. And what I found early on is that the first person who did this with our business know-how, they were actually shocked that when they found it very difficult to say, "Hey, I've decided to move on," and we said, "Congratulations, that's awesome. Tell us about what you're doing. Fantastic. We'll support you 100%. And if at any point in time down the future you want to come back on board, come back on board." And it's worked a treat, mate. And people are so unused to that approach that it's. I think what you're doing in that regard is refreshing because it's building long-term relationships. Which is, if I was to sum up our conversation today, mate, I think what you really invest in is relationships and long-term relationships which are enduring and benefit everyone, and it comes back to that gratitude and the giving sense that I pick up in everything you say, which is such a rarity in the resources game, because I see a lot of the opposite. It's all take and no give. I'm hearing the opposite from what you're doing, and what you're doing in that regard is building a community of people who share that, and it's going to have a massive impact on the industry, mate. I congratulate you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's funny hearing you talk because I've done work with you already, and it's easy, Bushy, when you're genuine. When you are flat out just genuine, this is how it is, this is what it is, like me or don't. That's your choice. What emotion you want to carry, whatever it is. You want to be angry, or you want to think I'm a dickhead, whatever. But the reality of it is, it's the effort you go to make that relationship. And I know you deal in property, investment, and help people build their property portfolios. And yourself, I know exactly what you do. So I've seen it happen. You get to know the person. You get to know what role them people carry in their team. I'm Team Finn because that's my family. Righto. Rachel's the money lady. Peter's the mouth. He goes to work. And you try and develop the dynamics and figure out where their risk profile's at. And I said at the very early on in the conversation that I was really lucky that I ran at it when I had no kids, because I reckon if I had kids and tried to run it again, I would have taken a very different line of attack. Yeah.
No, it's a very good call. Well, let's reflect a little bit then, mate. So if you were talking to someone who's just leaving high school, what would you tell them to invest their time, energy and money in knowing what you know now, mate?
Oh, it's a deep, deep thought, mate. It's funny. One thing, I just had this conversation. I had a face event just over here in New Zealand the other day where I flew some staff members over and we sat around a room and I talked about, so Wade Greenwood has just joined the team and he's going to go a long way in my business. I can already sense it. He's only he got a pay rise in the first 2 weeks, mate. That's how good he was.
Awesome.
And he's been a Boilermaker from Newcastle, been in that demographic. He's got out and done a bit of retail, done some stuff different, become a TAFE teacher, a school teacher, right up to a principal to deputy principal of a school in Central West New South Wales. Wow. So he's really got that emotional intelligence factor.
Yeah.
And me and him we had a really in-depth discussion about the future, and we talked about humans. And it's easy to have a whinge and say, "Shit, they're hard," and they're going to leave you, and they're unethical, and we can always think about all the negative, reactive things. And then it's sort of like, what can we do to be able to make our environments adaptable? I sat down with some tradesmen a little while ago, and I said, guys, when we get apprentices in, just because you were treated that way, we've got to treat these guys differently, because the reality of it is if we don't start treating these guys differently and trying to relate to them and get the best out of them and create the environments, we're not going to have anybody in our trade.
Yeah.
We're the ones that have got to create the environment and make our industry and our trade attractive to why they want to be a Boilermaker, to why they want to be a fitter.
Yes.
And then I have the other conversation with a couple of my managers, and won't mention names. I was in a room a little while ago having a keynote speak, and I sort of said, how many of you guys in here have drug tests at work? Hands go up. And a couple of cheeky fellas was really funny. They're actually really good guys, but I think it gave a bit of a realisation to what direction they're heading in, because I said, right, who has a lot of failed tests? And a couple of the cheeky guys who put their hand up and they sort of got a fixed mindset. And I said, right, beautiful. And I sort of said, well, do you know why people take drugs? And I said, they take drugs to escape their reality. Yep. And I said, people spend half their life at work, or if not more. Yep. I said, you create their reality at their workplace.
Yeah.
So you're making them do drugs because the reality you're making for them is not good. So they go home and do drugs. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, holy shit.
Spot on.
What are we doing differently here? And and that's the breakdown of it is one thing that FACE is doing is trying to create environments that bring the best out of people.
Yeah. Whether
it be workforce management, whether it be contract, whether it be straight out labour hire. We're talking about right now going through the process of becoming a GTO, which is a group training organisation where we can employ apprentices. And what that does is ultimately we can employ the apprentice, put them in a workplace, and the people that actually own that workplace don't actually have they're not employing their apprentice, they don't have that risk of employing the apprentice. That's our job. So if that apprentice is not fitting into their workplace, let's then move them to a workplace to a personal review. Let's have a conversation there.
Sorry, mate, it's getting we're breaking up a little bit for some reason. It must be something dodgy with the internet connection. I might just get you to repeat what you were saying there around the group training organisation, mate, because there was enough breaks there for people not to quite get what you were saying, mate.
Yeah, got it, mate. New Zealand is a small country, but it's amazing they haven't got a tower big enough that covers the whole country in phone signal or internet these days. Technology, Bushy, making guys like me and you stronger every day.
Mate, I'll tell you what we might do. We might just cut the video so that that might just give us a little bit more thingo, mate. So do you want to do that your end?
Yep, 1 sec, mate. Give me 1 second, and I'll figure out how to cut it, Bushy. Here we go, mate. How's that go?
Yeah, that's sounding a lot clearer, mate. Yeah, sorry, buddy. I think
that picture looks a lot better.
Yeah,
in front of you too, mate.
Same, mate. Yeah, you're on the good side now.
Yeah, what I was saying was basically about creating an environment to bring the workers, and one thing we really identified is becoming a GTO, which is a group training organisation where we employ the apprentices ourselves, because we want to employ these apprentices that, a lot of companies now, they employ an apprentice and that work out, and that doesn't go anywhere else. And becoming a GTO got that ability to be able to give the company a bit of less risk to how they manage their apprentices and be able to change their environment as required. And it's also good for that apprentice to get some exposure as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Mate, awesome. Mindful of your time, mate. Every time I talk to you, mate, I feel like I could talk to you all day because there's a lot of subjects we've just scratched the surface on. But I want to do what I call the ambush now, mate, or the bushfire lightning round with a couple of really key questions that will give some good takeaways for those in the game that are having a listen. And the first one of those, mate, is what's your favourite quote or the quote that you live your life by, mate, and why?
Life's a garden, dig it, mate. You only get one of it, and you've just got to get it, mate. It's ironic, I'm a miner as well, but yeah, don't sit and not know. I talk to a lot of guys that are maybe moved on a little bit in age, and I ask them, what do they miss or regret what they didn't do in, certain stages of their life. And I think talking to people older than you is probably key to how you tackle it moving forward, and getting perspective from people that have lived a life. Like what did a 23-year-old Peter Finn think like compared to a 33-year-old Peter Finn? And if I go talk to a lot of 43-year-olds that are maybe my old Cobar underage alcohol suppliers as example, I say, hey, you got your tips for me in the next 10 years? And they might say, yeah, I wish I did this, I wish I did that, I wish I chased this a bit harder. And you might not agree with it all. But at the end of the day, take something home from it and look at yourself and think, how do I want to live? You can't get time back, Bushy.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on, mate. Mate, slightly different topic. What's the top book that you would recommend people read and why, buddy?
Probably the 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
By Tim Ferriss, mate. He's a really clever man. The wheel's already been created, Bushy. There's not a feeling or emotion or something that hasn't probably been done. So Google it.
Absolutely spot on. It's a book that certainly changed our lives, mate. We've really taken on board the whole concept of access versus ownership, and it's transformed what we do and how we do it, mate. That's an absolute cracker. Mate, what about a personal habit that contributes to your investment success personally, mate? What can you share with us?
Funny, the missus asked me this question when she was reading through it earlier this morning, and I said I buy the Saturday paper every Saturday and I never read it.
I love that. I use it to start the fire, mate. That's the only thing I use in newspaper before because it's full of conflict and bad news.
Yeah. So I ended up, unfortunately, when I read the paper, the news is all well and truly past.
Awesome. Now, here's one that is a personal bugbear, mate, because I just still find that and believe that Aussies pay too much tax. What's the top thing you've done to pay less tax, Pete?
Look, I'm only a small business, Bushy, so I try and keep a lot of money in my business.
Yeah.
At the moment, I haven't really had to come across some really big tax hurdles. Don't get me wrong, I still pay a shitload, and it annoys me, because especially the way I see it getting spent. But, I'm not going to put my hand up here and be a politician, so I've got to take my hat off to anybody who puts themselves in that environment and becomes open to criticism from all aspects of life. I've got to talk about our Kiwi mate, Barnaby Joyce. Yeah, mate, to put it in a nutshell, for me, I keep a lot of my money in the business. I could probably introduce you to some guys, Bushy, that have done really well in the mining game and I could have these conversations with. And truthfully, I think your accountant relationship is key.
Yeah.
My accountant personally is a really good bloke. And I really take the effort and energy to develop a relationship because, you see, at least this accountant, he's a dickhead, It's like, mate, really, if you're taking the time to actually get his thought processes and, have a good, hard conversation, because he's not saying what you want to hear, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. And if you've heard of other options, tell him, he'll go and investigate. And I think people really need to harness that ability to have a conversation with their accountant to what works best for you as an individual personally, family, and a company point of view.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. And we work hand in hand with you mentioned Roxby Downs before, but we do a lot of work with people from BHP and all the other second tierers and first tierers in Roxby Downs, given it's so close to where we are. And one of the accountants who operates up there firsthand, I send people to him and he sends people to me because that relationship is fundamental in making sure that you've got the independent professionals all understanding what your specific goals are and then working together to make that happen, but keeping each other honest along the journey, mate. So, look, that's awesome advice in that regard, mate. Now, slightly different tack again. What's the best piece of investment advice that you've ever received, Pete?
Go buy a pub. No, don't go buy a pub. Look, the best advice I've ever been given, and something that I've followed, is diversify.
Yeah.
And work out your risk profile. Guys like you can help with that, Bushy. You know, have a conversation with someone like yourself. Work out your own risk profile, where you're at in life, what you're doing. I know you could probably go down a lot of rabbit holes here with, I think Dad done it really tough with superannuation. I think I can't think of the Prime Ministers at the time. I think you want to say someone by the name of Paul Keating.
Yep.
He sort of gives him a big wrath that he reckons that, he sort of stuffed the super system over and a few other things. And look, it is what it is, but I think diversification is key.
Yeah.
Diversification in a variety of industries and resources, and that ultimately will protect your portfolio, whatever the market does. I think Tony Robbins has got a new book out called Unshakable. Yeah. I've been slowly getting through that. Obviously, it's pretty American related, but he's one guy that I know he's a big, giant, jovial man with some big, giant smiles and has them events where people come out feeling awesome. But it's he really does genuinely care, I think, and I think his desire to give education around people's financial future is probably what people need to invest in is their own profile and what they're doing moving forward with it.
Yeah, no, good suggestion. On the flip side, Mike, what's the worst piece of investment advice you ever received?
Worst. I don't know, mate. Probably been given some over me days when I think of it. Don't play the Golden Isle at the RSL club in Cobar.
Or maybe not buy a pub, mate, if you're paying in the morning. So maybe that's it.
Look, don't. I tell you what. Now I have a good think about it.
Yeah.
People just go and buy a business or try and start a business. Put some planning and thought behind it. Like if you really want to get out, take some time to have a talk, do your research, ask the questions. Don't just go do it because you think it's a good idea. I've got some really good friends of mine and personal mates that have done things and gone and brought like cafes and opened up a cafe. And all of a sudden they're the one that aren't drinking cups of tea or coffees on the other side. They're the one dealing with a Facebook complaint or someone not happy and, they don't handle it that well. And, sometimes it's what I look for is how they react when something bad does happen because that's where it shows real character is how you're going to react when shit hits the fan. You see it in sports players, some guys are just awesome under pressure. They just know what to do. They know what to say. And I think that, people who are looking for escape or want to do something different, I think they really need to ask some internal questions that they're doing it for the right reasons and doing it for a way to create a lifestyle. Not only one, do they enjoy what they do, but enjoy who they're doing it with.
Yeah, mate. It's the old story, and probably a great way to bring the conversation to a close in the context that, as we've mentioned a couple of times, the grass is always greener. But instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I'm using lots of analogies here. If the real opportunity is to look at, okay, how can I make my current life better, and what I love about what you and Face Contracting are doing is bringing the human element back into the mining game, mate. And the more the relationship focuses there, both for the people that you're helping to get into work in the industry, but more importantly to start influencing and educating the company men on the other side to the value of treating people as humans instead of numbers, then collaboratively, people like me on the property finance and financial planners that you deal with and accountants, if we are all working closely with you to help your team and the team of people that you're putting people into, then suddenly we've got the opportunity to change lives, to enjoy the game, all knowing that there's a vision that people are heading to that's going to give them the choice to work how and when they want, and therefore be happier on that journey rather than feel like they're nailed to the perch with a ball and chain around their ankle, mate. So look, love what you're doing. Right from the get-go, from meeting you off the bat, mate, I've just loved your enthusiasm and your passion for what you're doing. It's really infectious, buddy. Really looking to support you in every way we possibly can to add some value to the equation as at the cutting edge of changing the ongoing employment relationship, really, in the industry, mate. So thanks for coming on board. I'm very keen to get you back on again, mate, to delve into more detail on some of the issues and the challenges that are facing the industry. Thanks for your time, Peter. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Bushy. Appreciate coming on, mate. And I look forward, buddy, and I encourage you to reach out again. Let's dive down some rabbit holes because, when I first launched Full Production, the podcast, there's so many topics we can talk about, mate, from operational styles to project management to individual finances to depression to divorces. Shit, mate. Take your pick, buddy. There's a lot to talk about. And for me personally, coming on here and communicating and sharing a message to your listeners, makes me excited about doing some cool stuff in the future, mate.
Absolutely, mate. Fantastic, Pete. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Bushy.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
How good was that? I hope you enjoyed it. To get a summary of all the investment gold and to get a copy of the show notes, email me on hello@khgroup.com.au. That's hello@khgroup.com.au. Or check us out at www.khgroup.com.au/get invested. And join me next week for another episode of the Get Invested podcast. Thanks for listening, and as always, dream as if you'll live forever and live as if you'll die tomorrow.